You're listening to Rep Radio. Our goal is simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, T.S. Hawkins talks about the education efforts of Theater Exile, including the upcoming event, Radical Imagination, and other sordid pandemic musings. Here is my interview with T.S. Hawkins, Education Director for Theater Exile. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am in the virtual studio with the one, the only, T.S. Hawkins. T.S.
Hello.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back and making space and time.
Yes, it's been a minute. I think the last time we had a chat, we were in person,
We're in person.
And but it was on Rep Radio, I believe.
Yes.
But it was about a totally different thing.
Completely different when theater didn't involve a whole bunch of masks and vaccination status cards, all of those things.
Yes. So for those of you listening, you can't see us. We look fabulous. And I'm sorry that you're not here to see how fabulous we look, but
I had to human today, so this is my leftover human wear.
Yes. But I'm excited to have you in the studio today because we are talking about the educational efforts of Theater Exile as we get towards the end of this theater season.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into it. But so first, just tell our listeners who may not remember the last time we chatted. Tell us a little bit about TS.
Well, okay. Of course, my name is T.S. Hawkins. My pronouns are they, them, theirs exclusively. I have my hands in a whole bunch of pots, even throughout the pandemic. So that was cool and a blessing. But right now, I am holding space with Darnell as my role as a director of education for Theater Exile. And coming up in August would be is it a year? Yeah, a full year-versary.
All right.
Full year-versary, year and a half. Not quite sure in this position, but
yes.
It would mark 9 years working within the Theater Exile community. So that's fun.
Wow. Happy anniversary, or your educational anniversary.
Right. Thank you.
So, I'm thinking about theater companies over the past couple of years. We were primarily focused on how to get people safely back into the audience, get into the theater, to sit in seats next to each other comfortably. And, maybe not a lot of conversation had been had about the other wonderful things that theater companies do, like the educational department. So I think that this is great. So we can have a chat about the educational efforts of Theater Exile. So give us like a year in review up to this point of education at Theater Exile.
Cool beans. Of course, the department predates me, so there was a lot of cool magic making that was happening in my absentia. The education department, it was also in charge of the summer programming that happens inside Columbus Square Park, and I believe they're renaming that park prayerfully soon, and providing youth opportunities to work within playwriting and theater. And however, during the year, we provide the same thing, but that's more so like an in class, in partnership structure with schools around the South Philly area. This year was the first time we branched out a little bit outside of South Philly, and we headed right on down the north side of Broad to work with another school within the French department, which is super, super cool. And so one of the cool, interesting things that I've been able to like tap into having my hands in this role is getting folks to understand that the arts is education and interdisciplinary. So we can
Mm.
teach theater in English, we can teach theater in science, we can teach playwriting in history, like we can teach playwriting in French. And so that's one of the beautiful things that have blossomed out of this year is expanding the opportunities to provide playwriting to students who necessarily aren't quote unquote theater nerds like you and I are. Just getting them like the spark of interest to be like, wow, okay, I thought theater was just like singing and dancing and you had to do X, Y, and Z. Like, no, theater has many different facets, and the education department is the vehicle to provide more arts to young people.
That's great. That makes me think. So, have you come across any students who are not, who are thinking that originally, like, this isn't for me, and how do you change their minds in their hearts?
Absolutely. I have a bunch of students this year, especially after coming back into the fold. Like, we're still in the pandemic. I need people to understand that we're just interacting with each other on more on a physical nature. So that transition from remote learning to now going back into the classroom setting, that's it's a big shift for a lot of students, and so getting them to like to tap in to
Hmm.
theater outside of Netflix and and YouTube has been a bit of a challenge. But the beauty is that I also pull from them. I say, tell me, like, what's your favorite TV show? What have you been watching on Netflix? What has excited you on YouTube? And trying to tap into them that way, and then asking what
Mm.
they want to be or where they see themselves in the future. Some folks would be like, no, I want to be an influencer. Some folks, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. So trying to explain to them that theater and playwriting also has a facet within their long term goals. I use folks who want to be doctors and surgeons as an example. That's why they call it surgical theater. So you have
Mm.
your props, you have you have your script, right? You have all of your characters and doing different things. You have a director that's the surgeon, making sure everybody is where they're supposed to be, doing what they need to do. So the same language that we use in theater can attribute to what they want to be in the future.
Wow, that's great. We should just refer to all of our coworkers outside of the sphere of arts and culture as the players.
The players, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was definitely thinking about pandemic creativity, and
Yeah.
there are, even though there's a lot of struggle and hardship here in this space, but there are benefits of the situation that we are in if you think about it in the terms of like being in a box, like most
Yeah.
stories place us. So can you talk a little bit about you know how do you bring out that creativity in the space that we are in?
Yeah. So what I did this year, because I knew that we were coming out of remote land into physical space, is I concentrated more on them world building, building their own worlds outside the scary actuality that is the pandemic. And some of the prompts, I made them as outrageous as possible, like underwater on a different planet, right? And so
Mm.
allowing them to pick their own setting, pick their own time period, and then the only thing that was mandatory was that they had to create three characters. And when I tell you, like, some of the folks their writing does represent the time and space that we live in, but for the majority of the writers, they're just like, oh, you're giving me access to hope and an
Hmm.
opportunity to create my own space. It was something beautiful, even though it was challenging at first to get everyone on board. It was something beautiful that has manifested with the stories. I mean, the students are talking about the year 3000, and I'm like, woo, okay, cool. Cool beans. Like, good on you. And then I have some students who were just like, no, I want to go like back in time. And I feel like I can really write about, the 1990, the 1900s. And I was like, oh, can we stop calling it the 1900s though? Like, I feel. I feel like we gotta respect the eras inside of that, that big umbrella.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so like stuff like that, and then realizing what they really think history is. The fun part was like there was one student who was like, "Yeah, I want to talk about like the 1940s. We were slaves." And I was like, "Okay, let's 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 take that back a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna
We
stop you right
weren't
there.
like we weren't per se." But for them, like the 1940s is this like big mystical place, right, of history,
Yeah.
because they are, 2000 heirs, right? So
Hmm.
it was just fun unpacking all those different things and watching them, create their world. And with my students, where English is their fourth language, watching them create plays in French, I mean, amazing.
Wow. Wow. And how fluent in French are you?
Oh, see what had happened was I I used to be pretty decent. I took French from middle school to high school, and then my
Mm.
first 2 years in college. But however, there was no one around me to practice with, so it's kind of like it kind of tanked. The beautiful part, though, is that I understand what folks are saying. I just respond in English, or kind of like my
Mm.
Franglish, so to
Oh, that's
speak.
good.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
been interesting. I let them laugh at me, so that's kind of like one of our things. Like, nope, go ahead, let's do this. You can laugh at me, and that helps create, a rapport that they're teaching me or reteaching me, and I'm teaching them.
Yeah. I wish I had I wish I had seen the value, the benefits of exploring other languages, earlier on in education. I took a Spanish class, I took a French class, but all I got from the French class is "Je m'appelle Darnell," and that is pretty
Yes,
much
your
it.
your name is Darnell. Simple, good.
Yeah.
That is your name.
um, yeah, yeah. So there is an event coming up,
Hmm.
part of the education department,
Yes.
called Radical Imagination. So tell us about it.
Yes. So this year's theme was radical imaginations and other, sordid pandemic musings. And we're getting 30 students together from across two schools to showcase either their monologues or scenes from a play that they have constructed, and to share it with the community. And so this is an opportunity to give young writers and to showcase their talents to community, so they don't think that, oh, this is just a classroom assignment. This is an opportunity for them to get real world experiences.
Mm.
And I mean, I run the space like a writer's room for those who are interested in becoming writers, so they understand the feel of like urgency. Writing is rewriting. Like, students are
Yeah.
real quick to be like, I'm done. And like, no, no, you're not done. Keep it moving. So the beautiful part is that we do put on a showcase for the community. It is free. We do accept donations, and this is an opportunity for everyone involved outside of the schools and our partners that we have to just see what's on the minds of the young people in the neighborhood. They really do
Mm.
have a lot to say, even if they're talking about, the Mars in the year 2080. It's very relevant to what they are feeling and what they are witnessing in the current time. And so they
Mm.
just put it in a different time and space so that they can work it through. But they're super, super talented. So the community should come on out. I mean, the tickets are free 99. Support the young people.
So how did this idea come about? you know, because we're in a pandemic, and there's a whole lot of like uncertainty around. So, you know, talk about how the brainstorming became this, and then talk about how this, the process.
So I think I need a little bit run that back for me again. At my brain, I feel like I need more
Talk
words.
about where the how did this idea come about in this era of uncertainty, and then talk about the process of making all this happen.
Oh, the concept of the showcase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, word on the street. When I took the job, that had to happen. that's so that's how it came about. Deb has been overseeing the department. Um, and there was other humans, of course, before me, and has always been the structure, that there be some type of front-facing presentation from the young people, which is a little different from other. There's other, how can I say it, other programs that do the same thing. However,
Mm-hmm.
they hire like professional actors to showcase youth work. Our spin on it is that we use the youth to showcase their own work. And once in a blue moon, we do bring in teaching artists, so they're not just hearing me, this face say the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again. We do bring in other professionals to like spark their creativity or give them another point of view about about writing as a career path, performing as a career path. But the showcase, as far as I know, the history is that like the showcases have to happen, and there's one in the fall, and then there's one in the spring. We did a lot of pivoting this year because we were coming into transition from
Mm-hmm.
inside a pandemic to now working outside in the pandemic. But usually within the education department, in regards to Paper Wings, there's a fall presentation, which is our monologue fest. So in the fall, we usually just focus solely on monologue building. And then in the spring, we do our 10-minute play fest, which is scenes from student work. This year, we had to pivot a little bit with the district, all the guidelines being different. CDC says one thing, district says another thing. So we just truncated it to a spring presentation so that the students have room to grow and feel comfortable, and that we're going to be doing virtually as well. We did virtual last year, going to do virtual this year, but it's going to be a mix between monologues and scenes from students ranging from 5th grade to 12th grade. So that's a big range
Oh,
of
wow.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. So take us into the room,
Into the room.
and let talk about how you get talk a little bit more about how you get them to engage. Like, we're at day one, and now we're at this point where thank you for the 80 revisions that no one ever wants to talk about, but are so essential to, putting a finer point on the message you're trying to deliver in your piece. And tell us what it looks like in the room.
Yeah, so I like to engage the students in their voice and letting them know that their voice matters. So as part of my lesson plans, my curriculum, we always come in with a chant. We chant power, uh, transformation, and acceptance. So those
Mm,
are the things to get us started. And then once we do that, we play a couple of theater games. And of course, back to regular structure, we're teaching them what a play looks like, the botany of the play, if you will, why the characters, why this story is important. And we talk about issues and things that concern them, stuff that's happening in their neighborhood, getting them to jot that down, finding, creative little snippets and vignettes to tell those stories, to work on the bigger picture. And
mm,
recently, we just had a field trip so they can actually come to the theater and actually see what a stage looks like. So that's fun, especially in a pandemic. Being able to go on a field trip is kind of rare. and to watch the students' eyes light up when they're just like, wow, so something that I wrote on a page could be turned into a whole nother world on the stage. Like seeing
Hmm.
how this one thing has a legacy, has a future outside the
Yeah.
black and white of the page. And so watching them hold their little scripts to practice with and like learning blocking, that was so beautiful for them to manifest. That it's more than just an idea rummaging around, or it's just more than an assignment that I gave them. It's their creative voice being represented on the stage. And for some of them, they've never seen a show, a theatrical production. They have never
Mm.
been in a theater. A lot of their stuff is, like I said, Netflix, YouTube, TV world. And so it was just really beautiful. So we go from like the classroom experience of me telling them that all these things are possible, that they can do all these things, to them physically seeing that it's a possibility.
Yeah. That's great, and people don't even realize, there's a majority of what is on YouTube that is basically a video essay, and a video essay is basically a script. It's a scripted performance,
Yeah.
and you know, and so they are watching a bit of theater when they are watching these things, um, and it is kind of cool to be able to pull them into an actual live space so they can see right here, not just the well lit or not well lit
Right.
content that you could find online. It's all there and it's real.
Yeah.
um, can you talk about have there been have there been any sort of struggles running an education initiative during this pandemic that may not be clearly visible
The
that are just
struggles.
helpful to know about?
Yeah, and most times, like, the struggles or the challenges is that even though we have guidelines from the district, each school is kind of like its own island. So you
Mm,
you just have to navigate the ebb and flow of what's happening in that school. So the things that I do at one school easily you cannot do at another school. And then
mm,
also within the pandemic, the district will say one thing, the CDC will say another thing, or your city will say something else. What happens in Philadelphia is not the same that happens to a school over in Glenside. So like
yeah.
the
Hmm.
communications is not very clear. The oversight sometimes on safety is not very clear. So it's kind of like, your own island, and you have to make sure that you're doing what you need to do for the best interest of the students and for your classroom, for your room, and the teacher that you're partnering with. So I always partner with another teacher that's inside the school. So as long as we're keeping each other, safe, cool, calm, and collected, it's really dope.
That's great. um, I want to ask you more about the educational structure. In a perfect world, what what would uh, what would the educational structure entail that may not be in place now, uh, for you
And
particularly?
every student would have a working Chromebook, and have
Mm.
and have access to multiple chargers. Students will have, pencils, pens, paper, supplies that doesn't have to be supplied by the teacher's salary and or pockets. Um,
Yes.
have internet that isn't working as if we are the Flintstones.
Oh wow.
you know?
Yes. Yes.
um,
All the hand-me-down tech
yeah, right.
that schools and nonprofits get. Yeah.
Yeah, and like everything is connected to how we learn, right? So unfortunately, in Philadelphia, there are schools that don't have kitchens because the buildings were built before the turn of the century. So students are not getting the proper nourishment that they need. So students are
Hmm.
coming in hungry. You know what I mean? So like, and so that
Yeah.
affects how they learn and how they interact. I mean, it's 2022. Like, we really should not be in a space where schools don't have kitchens and kids could have proper nutrients. To me, that's
Hmm.
silly. And then you expect to them to act, act, perform, take tests at these high levels, and there's a lot of things going on. So yeah, in a perfect world, every student across the board would have the equitable supplies that are needed for them to be successful.
Yeah. I and so in businesses in a corporate structure, there is an IT guy. I would love to see in these classes an IT kid, like a
Sometimes,
real like a really smart IT kid who's like, I can help you with that.
mhm, there are some students, like when the internet is not interneting, they're
Hmm.
like, "Let me see what I could do," right? And I was like, "Ooh, are you a hacker? Because I've got questions." You know, stuff like that. But there
Is
are like,
somebody writing this down? There's a play in here.
right, like, let's do
Yes.
this. So yeah, like, there are some kids who are interested in technology in that way. A lot of my students this
Hmm.
year are interested in gaming, which is really cool. I have a lot more
Hmm.
sports oriented young folks this year, which is amazing because they're writing plays based on what they know. So we've got some sports plays,
Yeah.
basketball, soccer, got some gaming plays, we got zombie plays, of course. Gotta have a zombie play. We have some futuristic plays, and then we also have plays that are very tender, just talking about how to become friends. Because that's something a lot of students are having complications with, trying to like make friends within
Yeah.
the pandemic, and something as sweet as just as asking someone, "Do you want to come over and play at my house?" Right? Stuff like that. So yeah, they're out there.
Yeah.
They're out there.
How do you approach vulnerability in your program?
Yes. So what we do at the top is that we let students know that it is an open, safe, and brave space. And I read all of the plays that are there, and some of them, not so much this year, but last year specifically, because we were like super thick into the pandemic. A lot of the plays looked more like they were more realistic than the world building fantasy world we tell playwrights to play in. And then so it's about
Hmm.
handling those situations, you know very tenderly, and having those conversations with the student, the in classroom teacher, and sometimes the principal if necessary, if certain things are being revealed in the world that they're creating, um, that maybe need to address in a different level. So it's a very, very tender process that we go through.
Yeah. From your perspective, tell us why theater education is so important.
As a quote unquote theater nerd, it's it I there's so many big eloquent words that I could say, but I think the simple and plain text is that theater and the arts are necessary. It is another avenue that can connect minds that operate differently. It help to excite them about learning other subjects and engaging with other subjects than just the subject itself. In
Hmm.
like, of course, like when I was younger in school, I was in all types of choirs. I was part of the musical. I was part of drama club. However, what sparked that way before that was in my fourth grade class, learning the simple act of poetry. Just learning about
Hmm.
poetry. That's it. And I was like, huh? What? This is cool. This is a whole new world for me. And then when my teacher told me that poetry can be turned into a song, that like further interested me in my classes I was already taking for singing. So I was like, wait, poetry? You can sing a poem? What? Like that, it felt novice to me. And to this day, when I think about those core moments, when I learned about Robert Frost's Two Roads, I learned about that in fourth grade. I learned that it could be taught and made into a song in seventh grade. So you know what I mean? Like, so these, it's like, wow, all of these things are avenues to the arts. But then, when it comes time to like budget cuts or whatever, arts are the first to go. But the only thing that kept me interested and integrated into my other subjects was knowing that there was a connection to the arts. Learning learning math didn't feel so tedious when I put together like, oh, fractions are music notes. So it's like arts are essential to how we just operate as humans. I mean, no, there's nobody out here who doesn't watch a YouTube, watch a Netflix. You want to be entertained. So why are we taking those core skills away from the young people when you want to be entertained? It has to come
Hmm.
from somewhere. It has to flourish from somewhere. Not many people wake up and say, "Oh my God, like I want to be an actor," this, that, and the other. They learn about the pathway to the arts through different things. So the arts
Hmm.
are necessary and they are essential to learning.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were saying all of that that I love I love um, conversationally quoting song lyrics.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
just because they're kind of out of context, but then you really tap into their beauty. You're like, wow, this was beautiful on paper. This is beautiful just speaking it out. And then they added the melody and all the instruments and all the people got involved. And that now that there's 7 writers getting credit for the song,
There you go.
there's so many things that were added to it. Um, you don't really think about that this all came from just general thoughts at first, and sometimes it's really hard to see the path
Yeah.
from idea to completion. And I love breaking it down like that. Like I'll just especially if somebody who knows me maybe doesn't know the song, and I'll just see how long I can go before they pick
Pick
up
up
on
that
it.
what
Like,
that's what
wait,
you're doing. Yeah.
are you singing a song?
Yeah. It always
It's
was
fun.
weird to me when people were like, "Well, I don't understand musicals. Like, who just breaks out in song?" And I was like, more than half of the people that I am in contact and communication with, like, we always burst out into song. So
Hmm.
I do not understand how you don't understand.
I'm like, what people do you hang out
Right?
with?
Like,
Jeez, this is like a norm for
you
me.
need to reevaluate that if you don't have nobody in your circle who busts out into song. Like, you're not living your best life.
um, can you share a moment that made you realize, yes, I love what I do?
I have many of those, and sometimes I'm really grateful that they show up when I'm just extremely tired and exhausted, and
Hmm.
they're reminders of why this is important and why I love what I do. I come from a lineage of educators, so I mean,
Hmm.
I didn't branch out too far. Theater is the most risky thing I've done. Like my parents are teachers, and so it's like, okay, it's kind of par for the course. But one signature moment when I was leaving one job for another because I was just so emotionally drained with the educational school system as a whole. And on my last day, before I was going back into the theater world full time, a student said to me, "You're leaving. How are we going to learn? You're leaving. How are we going to learn?" And that really,
Hmm.
like, it broke me in a way, like in the most beautiful way possible. And I was like, "Baby, I just got to go, but I'll be back." And I made that promise to the student that I'll be back. And so I came back. I came back to teaching because it's like, how are we going to learn? You're not here. How are we going to learn? So I did my thing, did my theater full time, and I came back. And so I recently found them on Instagram, and they were like, "Thank you, thank
Mm.
you, thank you. You know, my sister's gonna be in your class. You know, it's so cool." So, yeah,
Oh, that's
yes,
touching. I love I love moments like that. I mean, the the moments that make me realize, yes, I love what I do are moments like
yeah,
this. You know, talking to you right now makes me realize I love what I
yeah,
do. And I love being able to help other people understand why we are theater nerds, um, why we love art so much and why it's so valuable to us, especially in a time like this where it feels like everything is just falling apart around us. And but it's not
yeah,
though. It's just these are just things that are happening. But you know, there are conflicts, but we can combat them with joy and uh, you know, hope and
yeah,
possibilities. I feel like the president always says that possibilities. Um, you know, there's so much we can do, and if we can escape into a world that these wonderful students are creating, we can see that anything is possible.
yeah,
And so those kind of reminders, I think, are just essential to our day to day. Like, you know, you're stuck in traffic. Remember,
remember,
you can always create. You can
absolutely,
always create something that just puts a smile on someone's face that makes them realize, wow, this started out as nothing and now it is
yeah,
something. And it's amazing and it's beautiful. And we did that.
together,
We did that.
yeah.
Yes. I think that's yes. um, so has not to rush this event out of the space, but has planning begun for the next season? Can you give us a sneak peek of what to expect in the next season at Theater Exile?
Well, yeah.
What
I mean,
education?
planning is always happening because you know we're working. It's not something that we do in silo, which is a beautiful part about the education department at Theater Exile. It is literally done within partnership with the schools, with the principals and the teachers. You know that are serving the community of students that we would like to serve. So there's always planning. We're always looking to expand. We're trying to get two more schools on the books just so, you know, that we can be as rich and robust as possible. And
Hmm.
outside of that, we really keep an outline structure because the work and the brilliance literally comes from the kids. Like it's not something that we say as like cliche or, you know, just to be sexy for grants. Like it literally comes from the kids. So we have ideas and we have themes, but we have to meet the kids. They have to sit with the work and the
Hmm.
materials and learn the skills in order to create the monologues and the scenes that, you know, that you witness at the end of, you know, each quarter. So I don't know what the theme is going to be next year because it literally comes from it literally comes from the young minds. But I'm excited for the
Mm.
journey that they're going to take me on for sure. It's never dull. I can tell you that it is never a dull moment.
Yeah. And it all needs support. So tell our listeners how they can support the efforts of Theater Exile's education
Oh
department.
yes. So if you go to theaterexile.org and you click on boop, the little education button, you can see what we do there. We do workshops, which we have some of those workshops that are coming up for theater professionals, and even theater people, those who are just interested in theater. And then you can also see what we do in Paper Wings. And each side of those little clips, it has like a little button, and it says donate. You can donate to us, like literally $1, 50 cents, whatever you got in your pocket change, okay? Whatever you find in your couch. If you got couch money, I used to have couch money back in the day. You know, got couch money. We will not shy away from it because every bit of that money goes to the efforts of supporting these kids and their voices, making sure their scripts get printed,
Hmm.
making sure we have a commemorative book at the end of the year, making sure that we have lights and sound and a videographer to archive their work. Like everything goes to supporting these young minds. And so yeah, and especially when we're having our event, which is happening June 3rd at 7 p.m. and June 4th at 2 p.m., and that's a Friday and a Saturday, supporting Radical Imagination. When you RSVP for your ticket, there's also a little button that's like, hey, you want to, your ticket is free, but if you have a little extra, slide it on in. Slide in our DMs. We like it. We like it and love it.
It's like dig into your couch. You see them couch coins? We can
Yes.
use those. You weren't using those. We can use
Listen, I
those.
ain't no shame. Bring me your bags of pennies. Let's go.
Yes, paving the way for the next Philadelphia based Pulitzer Prize winner.
Absolutely. Thank you. Get them young. Get them young.
Yes, yes. Well, TS, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about Theater Exile's education efforts and radical
Yes,
imagination
thank you.
and other sorted pandemic
Yes.
musings, which June 3rd and
Hmm.
4th. And this is presented
Yes, it
virtually.
is.
Yes. So you don't even
You
have to leave
don't.
your house to
You
participate.
absolutely don't.
No. No, you can sit on that very couch where all your couch coins are.
Exactly. Exactly.
See, it's all tied in. It's all
That's
tied
all
in.
I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Well, T.S. Hawkins, Education Director for Theater Exile, thank you so much. And congratulations on your 1 year
Thank
anniversary.
you. Appreciate it.
Yes. And yes. And so be a part of this conversation, radical imagination and other sorted pandemic musings, theater as exile, educational presentation, and support these young artists because when they get this support early on, they will see the value of their ideas, their imagination. They'll see why it matters, and they will be engaged and inspired to create more amazing art so that we just have an abundance of creativity that we can look at tough times in our lives and say, yes, but there's so many talented, creative young people who are pushing against all of these things that make us feel uncertain and giving us hope and allowing us to dream in those spaces that they've created for us. So, again, TS, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about these educational efforts. And I hope our listeners out there are just as inspired and will be a part of these conversations. So, thank you
Thank
so
you. Thank
much.
you for having me. Looking forward to seeing people in the audience.
Rep Radio is an Emory production. You can find Rep Radio on social media at Rep Radio on Facebook, at Rep_radio on Instagram and Twitter. For more information, visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.